orange Ferrari. And green flag flies, we're racing. The Acura gets a great start from behind. 3 wide up the inside. Closing in on him here through turn number 2. Big slide on corner entry.
Here's, that's a big aggressive dive up the inside there from the Lamborghini. Some bragging rights here, I think, between the two. Look at that slide up ahead from Simpson. That thing was totally sideways, but he was able to catch it.
Lead. Fantastic stuff here in the M Cup. Big chop by the 777 car off the nose of that. Saw the corner, didn't have overlap, and went right to the apex. Checkered flag, and Adam Youngblood will win the AM race in the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League and pick up a checkered flag, a wet one here at the Huntsville Range. The racing season for SRO Motorsports America has come to an end, but that doesn't mean racing has to stop. In Assetto Corsa Competizione, we can keep competing throughout the winter with GT3 machinery. Welcome to the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League, a winter esports series where CrowdStrike friends and family can race together during the off-season. In several makes and models of the fastest GT3 cars on the planet, drivers will race in 2 classes, Pro and Am, for 40-minute events at some of the most significant racetracks around the world. Hi everybody, Kyle Heyer, joined by DJ Clark. DJ, welcome aboard. CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League is back this time in November. We've got 5 rounds throughout the winter, kicking things off here at Bathurst, Mount Panorama Circuit in Australia.
Yeah, and what a fantastic venue to be able to get things started here. One of the most iconic racing circuits in the entire world. Plenty of close action, plenty of good areas to get a pass done. And of course, we've got to talk about the run up and down the mountain, which is absolutely insane. Being able to get those margins right up there can be the difference between making a good lap, getting yourself on pole, or finding yourself out of the race entirely.
Certainly, Mount Panorama is one of the most significant racetracks in the world for a lot of reasons. We'll talk about the track a little bit more in a bit here, DJ, but talk to me about CrowdStrike. Of course, they have a kind of a you pat your back, I'll pat mine, or you pat mine rather, with SRO Motorsports America, protecting both AWS servers and SRO.
Yes, indeed. CrowdStrike is a cybersecurity technology company and is the leader in cloud-delivered endpoint protection. They use artificial intelligence on the CrowdStrike Falcon platform that offers instant visibility and protection across your entire enterprise and prevents attacks on endpoints on and off the network. And that's especially crucial when they do their work with SRO Motorsports Group America. They are a huge sponsor for us, offering plenty of cybersecurity protection across all of the SRO Motorsport Group endeavors, and they are a welcome partner to come on board with. Honestly, really and truly, just a delight to work with, and we are so happy to have them on board with us.
Really excited, and I promised you we'd talk about the racetrack a little bit. Mount Panorama Circuit. Have a look here, DJ. There is a whole bunch of corners here, and they all start with the run down towards Hell Corner at turn number 1, leading you up the mountain straight, and then it gets pretty wild as you head up towards Griffin's Bend and up the side of the mountain.
Yes, it most certainly does. Griffin's Bend, from there on out, you get into the cutting, and that's about the last potential overtaking point you're going to have for about the next minute and a half. From that point, the run up and all the way down into Forest Elbow, it's like a street race, Kyle. The walls are very close on either side. There is virtually no margin for error whatsoever. But then things get interesting. You come out of Forest Elbow, you get onto the Conrad Straight, and it's like you're racing a traditional road course. Everything widens up in front of you, plenty of room to get the draft down into the chase, and there are plenty of opportunities to be able to attack from that point on.
I think the chase is one of my favorite corners in all of international motorsports. Such a fast section of racetrack. Heavy on the brakes, a great passing opportunity, and drivers are going to try to limit their passing opportunities by starting up front with qualifying. 17 minutes remain here in this qualifying session as we head back onto the racetrack here, DJ. Getting things underway, setting down hot laps to get yourself prepped for this 40-minute race, and starting up front means you can stay up front a little easier.
Yeah, and crucially here, if you're able to be in front and be in a little bit of clean air throughout the course of the race, you're not going to have to worry at all about any of that pesky aero wash that we talk about through some of the faster corners coming up and down the hill. Now, the one drawback to that is that you want to be able to get close to somebody going down Conrad Straight or Mountain Straight to be able to get the benefit of the draft. So there's a little bit of a give and take here that you want to get back and forth on it. We'll have to see what the drivers decide to do. Obviously, clean air is probably going to be the best, but in qualifying here, you may want to be a little bit closer than you think to maybe try to gain a couple of tenths of a second in the draft.
Certainly, and many drivers are here tonight, just about 20. And we have two different classes, Pro and Am class. Now, really, the difference here was driver's choice. It was essentially a decision of how competitive do you want to be and how competitive do you want your competitors to be. So the Pro drivers include drivers like Josh Staffen, a multi-time winner in the original GT Rivals SRO America Esports competition and has returned several times in seasons after that. Arup Kumar is back this season as well. Matt Gefeller in the number 19 Bentley is also in the Pro class. Those drivers have the white number backgrounds as Staffen goes to the top of the board with a 203.29. And then, of course, the AM category has the red number backgrounds on the screen.
Yeah, and so that'll be something that we talk about over the course of the running, a little bit of that play in between class right now. Josh Staffen, by the way, the only driver here in the Acura or Honda NSX, depending on where you're watching in from the world. I want to talk a minute about the great disparity we have of cars out on the track. We've got the NSX, we've got BMWs, Audis, Bentleys, Aston Martins, Porsche, Lexus, Ferrari, really and truly just about every kind of car that you can be able to drive here on ACC. Drivers have picked that and been able to come into it, and it is a real testament to the multitude of options that you have on Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Yeah, and this mirrors very closely the cars that we see in the real world in the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, including this brand new BMW M4 GT3 that Bill Strobel is piloting here. And again, we see that kind of replicated across the Acura NSX, just like the one that the Real Time Racing Group uses in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. We've got an Audi here as well, Bill Clark in the Audi R8 LMS GT3. Of course, the Bentley that we saw most recently in GT America, powered by AWS last season. The Flying Lizard Motorsports by SKO, that was the group that found victory in one of these at Sebring in 2021. And Aston Martin, Humphreys in the number 65 driving that. And really the representation is as realistic as the cars and the soundtrack here in Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Oh, the soundtrack is something to be incredible. I mean, Kyle, how many times have you and I sat in the booth? I have vivid images of you and I sort of walking down the paddock and hearing cars scream by during practice and sort of laughing with each other of going, that's a Mercedes AMG, that's the Ferrari, that's a Lamborghini, going through all of those. And that soundtrack of the engines perfectly mimicked here in ACC. It really, really is just absolutely fantastic to be able to listen to, and they have just nailed that soundtrack.
One of the cars that is my favorite to listen to is the Porsche 911 GT3R. John W's got one of those right now, the number 56, as he heads down towards the downhill here at Mount Panorama Circuit. And John piloting this thing. This is one of the rear engine, actually the only rear engine car that's here today and in the SRO Motorsports America Series. We talk about the realism of the sounds, let's talk about the realism of the driving experience. Rear engine, rear drive versus front engine rear drive versus mid-engine rear drive. Those experiences are very dynamically modeled here in the sim, and just like the real world, they all have their advantages at different courses around the world.
Yeah, they certainly do. And when we specifically talk about the Porsche here, great turn in with that car. You're really, really able to get some good rotation with it because of that rear engine, rear wheel design. But the one problem is that rear engine, the rear tires, do have a little bit of a tendency to wear a little bit more than you would in a front engine design or a mid-engine design. And as a result, you've got to be a little bit careful about near the end of the race, the rear engine starting to break, or the rear tires starting to break away a little bit. And because the weight is so far over the rear axle, it's a bit like a pendulum. Once it starts to go, it is next to impossible to be able to get it to hold on to. But if you're able to maintain control of that car, it is devilishly quick.
And I think one of the reasons that I love talking about racing sims and racing in the off-season is it keeps your mind sharp. Now, none of the drivers here today are real-world drivers in the SRO Motorsports America Series, but we've talked to several that have competed in real-world competition in these cars, and they always talk about how realistic the handling of these cars is and how different dynamically they are. Just goes to show how much effort and energy Assetto Corsa Competizione and Kunos have put into this sim that make it a realistic driving experience and worth doing in the off-season to keep yourself sharp.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to drivers up and down the paddock that whether it's in a competitive sense, where they're running in open lobbies, or they maybe join a league in the off season, or even just running hot laps. Sims, specifically Assetto Corsa Competizione, is really and truly a way for all of them to keep on their toes. You know, it's not like the days of yore when Jimmy Clark would be jumping all around the world to go race in races down in Australia in the off season. These drivers now can use ACC to be able to virtually race in Australia from the comfort of their own home and keep their reflexes sharp, keep that knowledge of the tracks built into their head, and really and truly be able to try to go.
There's the 41 Christopher Weil machine running the ST Racing livery that we've seen a handful of times this past season. That gorgeous brand new BMW M4 GT3 entering the chase right now, down a couple of gears. See if we can ride on board for a little longer here and just get a more of a sense of the speeds that you're carrying here. You're going to be well over 170, 175 miles an hour into the chase, but then the first half of the racetrack, pretty sharp 90-degree corners. You're down into third, maybe even second gear entering turn number 1 here, DJ, as looks like Christopher's going to pull on over. So we'll jump on board with Arup Kumar, who's entering the uphill and giving us a great perspective on board this BMW M4.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I talked about a little bit earlier. This is public roads around here. These are public roads that these drivers are running on, so it is very much like a street course up here. But you can see the walls closing in on either side of you. There is absolutely no margin for error as he brings his way up and around. As we see there, maybe a little bit of contact there with the outside wall as he brings his way down through Reed Park right now. You can see just how tight this is. And now as he comes up behind, contact there with the Mercedes AMG, proving my point. When you come up behind a slower car, it is next to impossible to get out of the way.
Yeah, I was trying to see what car that was. I think it was the 303 of Will Thomas. That was the Mercedes that he ran into, and that just goes to show the closing speed here. Thomas is one of those AM competitors that wasn't necessarily looking for intense competition, just wanted to familiarize himself with the sim and have a fun race. And that might be a different strategy than those with the white number backgrounds that are here to really compete up at a high level here in the sim. And that difference in qualifying is going to be pretty stark. Once we get to the race, though, it'll be a little while before we have the leaders come around to put other drivers a lap down.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at lap times of about 2 minutes here, and so that does mean that it is going to be a long, long while until they catch themselves back up. Obviously, this race circuit, about 3.8 miles, 6.2 kilometers, there or thereabouts, and so it's a long, long circuit, and we always talk about Bathurst as one of those ones that is very difficult to race, not necessarily only because of its difficulties coming up and over the hill, but the memorization that you have to go through, this multitude of corners that you've got to remember exactly where your apexes are, how you want to take the best corner, and frankly, what comes next and how to set that up. It's a little bit running like they go.
Looking at Josh Staffen, who is on provisional pole right now at a 2:01.660. That's a pretty quick lap around here, DJ. Not going to see times a whole lot faster than that. He has 2 full seconds on Arup Kumar, who is second right now, then Bill Clark in the number 24 runs third, while in the 41 is fourth, and it looks like Vlad Dola just went P5 in another BMW M4 GT3 with a 2:05.310. Bill Strobel 6th, John Williman in 7th, and Pratik Mishra, Martin Lassen, and Alex Aso in 10th. That's your top 10 as it stands. A couple other drivers on the track right now, and going green on the timing and scoring, that's Ryan Tomlinson in the Ferrari, making his way up the hill.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be held up here a little bit potentially by that BMW directly in front of him. You can see the BMW doing everything he can to sort of stay out of the way there for him, try not to impede that progress. And that's some good sportsmanship there. And oftentimes what you'll see in these kind of races is recognizing those moments where you're able to get out of the way and let some of those faster cars through. Looks like one of the Audis there doing the exact same thing. And let's stay on board here with Ryan Tomlinson as we come up and over Skyline right now. Oh, such a tricky and gorgeous corner. You can really see the entirety of the track as he now comes down through the S's. And this, to me here, Kyle, is one of the most difficult portions of the track. Going down through the S's and into the dipper. You are downhill at this point. You have the weight of gravity pulling the car down as you're trying to apply the brakes, so you've got to brake earlier and harder to make sure that that car is stopped in time. Tomlinson doing it absolutely perfectly, but it is very, very easy to get wrong through there.
It's easy to get wrong. I always wondered if drivers that do track walks around here at Mount Panorama are amazed when they go up there at walking speed just to absorb the sights up at the top of the mountain. When you're coming over the crest at 120 miles an hour, there's really no time to enjoy the sights of the top of Mount Panorama. You're focused only on the apexes ahead, because if you glance up for even a moment, things go wrong pretty quickly.
Yeah, like we said, no room for error, no margin of error around here. Really and truly, even coming down here into Murray's Corner, you talked about how the last and the first corner on this track are seemingly relatively simple 90-degree corners, but Murray's, you're so used to carrying so much speed down the Conrod Straight and through the chase, and then again through Hell Corner. Very, very easy to just miss your apex a little bit, get onto the throttle a little bit too early, pick up a little bit of understeer, and find yourself into the outside grass and gravel.
Tomlinson continues to run a little slow there through turn number 1, so he's a couple seconds off of his personal best time. Here's Turtan here, the number 88 Lexus, the lone Lexus in the field. I love the sound of this car. He's up 6 seconds on his previous best lap, which would put him up inside the top 10 if he can finish it out here. Here he comes across the line. He jumped to 7th from 13th place, so a great lap there for Turtan.
Yeah, I think he's going to be very pleased with that. And yeah, as we said, good to see the Lexus here on this field. One of my personal favorite GT3s that they have running around here. We don't see it a whole lot in the digital SRO space, so very, very good to see Turtan carrying the flag for Lexus. And there you can see, even on these straightaways, Kyle, the elevation change that you go through over the mountain straight, that big crest that you have to come up and over. Turtan looks like a pretty good line there through Griffin's Bend, going to be able to keep things together. Let's see how he handles the cutting here. Very, very difficult corner. You've really got to try to diamond it off as much as possible. A lot of steering input there for Turtan, but still a pretty good line.
He's got quick hands on corner exit, which tells me that he might be running a lower traction control setting just to get some additional acceleration. That's a balance you have to make with your traction control and anti-lock braking settings. There are dial adjustments you can make to increase how aggressive those systems are at keeping your grip under you. The challenge is when you increase that safety net, you're going to give up some drive up off the corner. Now, Turtan, you see him wiggling every time he gets the pedal back down. That's a little bit of wheel spin that he's trying to straighten out. Down the hill, though, the car looks very composed. I think it's a 4.5-liter V8 under the hood here, screaming in this Lexus as he heads down towards the back straightaway here, the Conrod Straight. Big slide on corner exit, though. He's still up 0.3.
Well, and that's exactly what you were talking about there, that little bit of wiggle as he tries to put the power down, struggling with the traction control. And as you said, the reason you take off that traction control is what will happen is if you break traction with the traction control turned up high, the engine will actually cut out a little bit to try to restore grip back to the tires. And so if you want to maximize your lap time, some drivers will turn down that traction control to minimize the amount that engine is going to be cutting out and maximize the amount of time they're on speed. You just have to be quick with your right foot and your hands to be able to counter that. A little bit off the apex there coming down through Murray's Corner, but let's see how he's tracking.
Up a couple tenths, but not enough. Actually, it wasn't quite an improvement, a 206.48 to a 206.382. A little bit of understeer through that final corner will keep him from improving. Alex Aso in the number 25 Audi, up 0.6 here, although he's early in the lap. This is the mid-engined Audi. It's got that V10 naturally aspirated engine behind the driver. I think one of the best sounding cars in all the GT3. Very much like the sister car, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3, which I don't actually think we have running today, which is interesting, but I love the sounds of the Audi and the Lamborghini. Just such a good naturally aspirated V10 engine spooling away behind the driver.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. And you mentioned that this is one of those mid-engine cars, and so what that's going to mean is you're going to have a lot of front tire responsiveness. You're going to have a very, very good turn-in with the car and very good rotation, but it can be a little bit finicky. That Audi will want to kind of break away on you, dance a little bit across the tarmac, and so you've got to have a very quick set of hands to be able to drive this car quickly. But if you are able to sort of master its secrets, it will reward you in kind, and you will get some great lap times.
Heading down the mountain here, inches away from the concrete wall and through Forest Elbow back onto the front straightaway, or the back straightaway, Conrod Straight. Aso in the number 25 throttles up and away. 9/10 clear of his best time if he can hang on to it. A few others are up in the green right now, but Staffan Kunin, Arup Kumar, your top three, and Bill Clark in the number 24 leads in the Audi group right now. There's 3 of those cars in the field, and Bill is the highest running of them right now, inside the top 5, heading down the hill.
Yeah, he's going to bring the car down the hill here. Looks like he's going to come up behind one of the BMWs, a little bit slower in front of him, but luckily he's going to catch him right at about here at the exit of Forest Elbow. And this is the point when I was talking about a little bit. This is actually going to help Bill, and he's going to have a little bit of that draft off the BMW in front of him, breaking some of the dirty air, or breaking some of the clean air, and allowing him to really suck up behind and be able to get that good run here. That'll probably gain him a couple of miles an hour here as they run. And there you see him closing in under braking. That is another benefit of the Audis. They tend to be very good under braking.
Yeah, this is true of the Porsche as well. When you've got so much rearward balance, the cars really do like to stop as they kind of dive forward on the brakes. They also really like to accelerate. What they don't like to do, or at least in the Porsche's case, they don't like to rotate very much off throttle. You really got to get on throttle to shift that weight balance or other way around rather. They don't like to accelerate on throttle. They are very stable on throttle, which means that you've got to really wait, and then as soon as you get that power down, it's not going to spin out on you as you shift that weight to the rear. 26 seconds left here in qualifying. Staffen, Kuhn, and Kumar still the top 3, and looks like all of the top 5 drivers are in that pro category. 2 of the pros are intermixed from 6th on down.
Yes, they are. Here's Chris Humphries in the lone Aston Martin in the field. One of my personal favorite cars, just by looks alone. Kyle, I've got to bring it up here. You and I are on a broadcast. It is a swoopy-looking car. Just gorgeous lines on that thing.
Now, this is the older Aston Martin GT3. This is not the new Vantage that we see in real-world competition right now. This is the older generation car. I think this has a V12 under the hood, and on board you can just hear that thing scream. The new car is a twin-turbo V8, and while it sounds good, I think my heart still lies with this V12 that this car has.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. The V12, it's a very distinctive noise. As qualifying is officially over here. We wait for the last couple of drivers to cross over the line. Looks like Mishra is going to be one of them in that number 7 BMW. He's actually going to be charging up the hill right now, and he may be able to get one more lap time in, I believe. As there you can see the maximum wait time of about 2 minutes and 15 seconds for drivers to complete their flying lap.
Yeah, Tomlinson is up 1.2 seconds on his best, and he's only about a minute away from the start-finish line, so he should get a better time in. Unfortunately, I don't think even with a 1 second change, he's going to get past Matt Gefeller in the number 19, who is 1 spot ahead of him, but still half a lap left to go. And over the crest, this AF Corsa livery looking very Italian on this Ferrari. A little understeer there as he heads onto the Conrad Straight.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt him quite a bit, not only through the corner there itself, but to be able to get that right through Forest Elbow. That is the maximum point of acceleration. You need to nail that to really be able to carry as much speed as possible here down the Conrad Straight. Now, obviously, in the race setting, that's going to be important to make a pass, but even in qualifying here, you're going to be losing tenths, if not a full second, if you get that corner wrong. Good line though here through the chase, though. Let's see how he handles Murray's corner. Yeah,
this last corner is always so much tighter than it looks. You approach it, and then you always blow it. You think you've just driven in too hard, but on the brakes, Tomlinson turns in. Nicely done. Gets down to the curb. You don't want to hit that curb. It's too tall. You're just going to bounce the car skyward, and Tomlinson does improve, but not enough to gain any positions as qualifying is complete here from Bathurst in the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League. So Staffen, Kuhn, and Kumar, your top 3. DJ will get into the full starting lineup in a couple of minutes, but an interesting session, and everyone seems pretty comfortable, I have to say. We'll see how the race goes, though. There's plenty of time to make mistakes.
Yeah, there's plenty of time to make mistakes, and qualifying, setting a hot lap here is one thing, but when you've got other cars around you, it does change everything as they run. Not only are you having to worry about running different lines around the circuit because a car may be next to you, but there's the sheer distraction factor that you have to deal with as you're going to be having to look in your rearview mirror and trying to spot the line in front of you, and just that merest moment of not paying full attention to what's going on can be enough to throw you off.
Certainly can be. And tell me about the start of this race, DJ, because getting up and down the mountain the first time is really the key, I think. The biggest challenge is getting through lap 1. So what do you have to do on this opening lap to make sure that you have the rest of the race to move your way forward?
Well, what you've got to do is just be calm, cool, and collected. The biggest enemy of any driver here at this point is adrenaline. You do not want to have yourself amped up a little bit. You want to just be as calm and collected as possible. And coming down into Hell Corner, that surprisingly is normally the biggest flashpoint that we see because it's a relatively simple corner and leans out onto the wide mountain straight. You see a lot of drivers trying to make up a few positions there. I think what's crucial for these drivers is to not be too aggressive into that corner. Try to take it a little bit more calm as they go, and then from there on out, it is just continue that calmness. Don't worry about trying to make a pass here on the first lap. Just focus on getting through this first lap cleanly. From there, build your confidence up, and then start to be a little bit aggressive as the time ticks down.
Here's a quick look here at the sky in the sim. It is absolutely gorgeous here. Just a couple of minutes until we go racing. And we've got about a minute and 50 seconds until we go on a warm-up lap, DJ. And warming up the tires, warming up the brakes, getting these Pirelli slicks in operating range, that's a huge component to initial success.
Yeah, it very, very much is. You need to be doing that, especially considering the lower speed that they bring themselves through here on this pacing lap. So do not be surprised if coming down the Conrad Straight in particular, we see a lot of weaving back and forth. Now, that's going to be for two reasons. Number one, that is going to be to clean off any excess rubber off of those tires, try to get them as clean as possible, maximize that contact patch with the road. And then the other part of it is as you said, to warm up the tires. We also may see some drivers accelerating and then deaccelerating as a way to try to warm them up as much as possible. You want those tires in the operating window by the time you get into Hell Corner. We've already talked about the difficulties there. And then definitely by the time you get into Quarry Bend, that sort of medium speed corner, you need those tires to be in that perfect operating window to get that apex correctly.
Yeah, and especially when we get a little bit deeper into the race, tire management in a 40-minute race could certainly be a concern. What you want to do is keep the tires under the car, and you can definitely overheat the Pirellis if you abuse them. They will last the distance with not a lot of fall-off at all if you behave. If you start locking up tires, you turn your ABS down, or you're spinning the tires, you have your traction control down, you can beat those things up, but it'll make your day pretty miserable.
Yeah, it'll make your day very, very miserable. And watch out for some of the cars that are known to have a little bit more tire wear. In particular, the Porsche tends to be one that does abuse its tires just a little bit. But if you know how to take care of that car, it can reward you big, big time.
So kicking things off here in just a moment as we get set for our 40-minute race here. And it'll just be another minute until we start to get rolling and go through our starting lineup and more here, DJ. Any predictions there? Josh Staffen, we've seen him be successful before. Do you think he's got what it takes to win this one again?
You know, I hate to sort of pick the obvious choice here, but I've got to think that he is. Staffen is a world-class sim racing driver. I had the chance to be able to talk with him a little bit in Indianapolis in person. He's a great guy and a great driver. I think he's going to be pretty hard to beat here today in his customary Honda NSX.
Yeah, certainly it will be fun to watch here in just a moment. Cars are on track. Give you one more moment. We'll be ready to rip and talk about our starting lineup and more. And talk to me about your favorite car in this group here, DJ. What car would you want in the duration of this race to get yourself the best chance of moving forward?
Well, I frankly think here the BMW is going to be one that is going to be very, very beneficial here. That car's got some good straight line speed that's going to help you down the mountain in Conrad Straight in particular. It's also a little bit of an understeering car by nature, which means that you can lean on it a little bit more. You can push that car a little bit more than something that's, say, a little bit more twitchy like the Porsche or the Audi. And so what that means is yes, you're going to have to be putting a little bit more steering lock coming up and down the hill here. You're going to have to be trail braking a little bit more to get that car to rotate. But I would rather have that really stable platform under me that I know what it's going to do and I know that it's going to be a hair understeering than have a car that's going to want to break away on me and twitch out. So I think here, if we look at this, Kumar, Vile, Dola, all of them in the BMW, look for them to maybe move their way forward here a little bit. I think that BMW is going to be pretty strong. And morning sun here at Mount Panorama Circuit, 7 o'clock a.m. in the sim. Gorgeous golden Australian sun. Fans lining trackside here for the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League, the first round of the season. You haven't missed anything yet. The next couple of races, we're going to kick things off on December 3rd at Brands Hatch, then January 7th at Suzuka, January 28th at Monza, February 11th at Spa-Francorchamps, and then March 11th for the finale at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. You can watch it all on CrowdStrike Racing's YouTube channel.
Again, I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by DJ Clark for round number 1 of the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League season. Your starting lineup on row number 1, Josh Staffen in the number 93 Acura NSX GT3, Zach Coonan on the outside of that front row in the number 36 Ferrari, DJ.
Yeah, behind them we have Kumar and Clark as they go, Veal and Dola, and then we've got John W. and Mishra in P8. Turtan and Lassen round out your top 10.
11th place will be Alex Aso in the number 25 Audi. Chris Humphreys will roll off behind him in that number 65 Aston Martin. Mackefeller rolls off 13th, and Ryan Tomlinson starts on the outside of row 7 in 14th place.
In 15th, it'll be Thomas in the Mercedes-AMG, and Wah flanking him in the other Mercedes-AMG. Bringing up the back of the field, it's going to be Landsatter in the number 500 BMW, and Bill Strobel in at the 888 BMW as well.
All right, back up front, Josh Staffen warming up the tires on that Acura NSX. Just behind him, Zach Coonan in the Ferrari, getting ready to do the same. We've seen these two go toe-to-toe in GT Rivals and previous SRO Motorsports America Esports Championships. They're getting ready to do it again in the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League. Thanks for joining us here today. 40 minutes goes up on the board, and it's going to be an exciting one here, DJ. The track conditions as well, let's talk about that. 19 degrees Celsius on the racetrack and in the sky, but as the sun rises, so will the track temp.
Yeah, it certainly will. We're going to see that track temp get a little bit higher into the air, and that is going to be something the driver's going to have to worry about a little bit. But over the course of a 40-minute race, as we said, tire wear not going to be the biggest issue.
Doubling up now, racked up and stacked up for the start. And this is going to be a real slow start, first gear for sure, as you head through the last corner, Murray's Corner, into the front straight. And as soon as you hit that start-finish line, you can accelerate up to race pace, maybe tiptoeing on cold or cool Pirellis. Despite the warming, 19-degree air temps mean that it's going to be challenging to get heat in these Pirellis on the opening lap. A little bit of rubber trackside as well, some marbles to make things extra treacherous off the racing line. Time to go racing, though, in the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League. Staffen on pole, race 1 of 5. Here we go. To the start-finish line, 40 minutes and underway. Green flag flies, and we're racing at Mount Panorama. Staffen heads down towards turn number 1.
Looks like Coonan's going to try to fight there a little bit around the outside, but that's not going to play itself out. Further back into the field, I believe that's Vile and Clark going side by side. Looks like everybody's been able to get through Hell Corner nice and cleanly as Josh Staffen starts to build a lead.
Staffen heads down towards Griffin's Bend now. He's got Coonan in tow. Kumar's got Bill Clark to the inside now in the Audi R8. Here he comes now side by side into turn number 3. Ain't going to stick, though. They're going to have to tuck back in line.
Yeah, very, very difficult to get a move done down into Griffin's Bend. I expect to see some maybe passes there later on in the race when these tires are up to temperature, but as they're warming up right now, that certainly may not be the case.
Yeah, so far so good. I think everybody's kept it in the right direction behind Bill Clark. I think that's the 41. Mr. Vile in the ST Racing BMW. Wow, a little scrape there from Clark off the fence. He's got Vlad Dola right behind him in another BMW. These two chase each other across Skyline.
Yeah, and this is going to be a good moment there for the drivers behind Clark. Vile knows that there's going to be a mistake made. He's going to know that he's going to be able to put some pressure to the back of Clark and maybe get into his head a little bit. And that's the kind of thing you want to do here coming up and down the mountain, because there's not really a chance to overtake until you get onto the Conrad Straight.
Oh, trouble at the top of the mountain. Several cars turned around. Hard impact for one of the Mercedes. That was the 40, no, it was not the 44 of Wah. But let's see what happened here at the top of the hill. I think Strobel was in the middle of it all. Here's a look at what happened.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of side-by-side running here with Tomlinson, I believe, as they came up and over the hill, working their way here through McPhillamy Park. I wonder if this was just a little bit of miscommunication. You can see that blinding sunlight. Goes for the move going down into Skyline, and that had already stacked up in front of him, just nowhere to go.
Yeah, big stack up there, and several cars with fairly significant damage. Strobel gets through it, but some others with some fairly significant front-end damage, including Tomlinson, I think Alex Aso as well, and John W. in the lone Porsche in the field is also on pit lane with some crash damage here as the rest of the field comes across the line and completes the first lap here.
And look at that from Josh Staffen, not only setting the fastest lap of the race as you would anticipate here, but already building a 1.2 second lead on the rest of the field. That's Christopher Vile having a little bit of a problem coming down through the Hell Corner. I think this is a little bit of what we talked about, just a little bit early on the throttle, understeering off, and he's going to lose that position in front of him.
Yeah, certainly loses some spots there, but gets the car out of the gravel and doesn't hit anything. That's the important part. as Bill Clark now sets his sights on Roop Kumar up in 3rd place. A podium would certainly be nice. We've seen Clark on podium in this series in the past. Audi versus BMW now climbing the mountain again on lap number 2.
Yep, back up and over the mountain here at this point. This is where you've just got to ignore everything else around you and focus just on the track. You cannot be thinking about trying to make an overtake here. The biggest thing you've got to do is just hit your apexes, get this part of the track perfectly, and focus, most importantly, on your exit of Forest Elbow.
Look at the blinding sun here over the crest as well. How significant is that here, DJ, especially for those in virtual reality? I know that that can really be an obstacle when you got the sun in your eyes early in a race.
Yeah, it can be a big, big problem because if you're not really expecting it, if it comes out of nowhere on you, you can miss your braking point coming into Skyline. And I actually suspect that may have been what happened that saw that big first lap pileup, is that we had a couple of drivers just miss their braking points because of that blinding sun. And if you're in VR, oh, that can absolutely throw you out of whack.
Yeah, Chris Humphrey is another driver that has come down pit lane now with crash damage. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers in pit lane with fairly significant damage, and that's going to end their day early. But again, that's probably expected, DJ. The mountain is not kind to those without any good luck, and certainly that claimed a couple cars here early in this race.
Yeah, as you said, not entirely unsurprising here. We're used to seeing a little bit of those first lap stack-ups there, and because of how narrow that portion of the track is up and over the hill, if there is a stack-up in front of you, it is next to impossible to avoid it if you are coming up from behind. So you kind of see that domino effect starting to take place.
Yeah, so the top 4 have kind of broken away a little bit, staffing through Clark in the 24, and then Dola's back about 3.4 seconds from 4th place. See him way off the distance, just coming over the crest under the Audi Sport Bridge. Here's a look at Roop Kumar, who started in 3rd, and here he continues to run, kind of matching the pace with those in front of him by about a half a second from Coonan last time around, but significantly quicker than Bill Clark last time back. So he is beginning to kind of stick closer to the front 2 than the 2 behind him.
Yeah, he's starting to pull away from Clark here at this point. The gap was about 1.2 seconds as they crossed over the line when they came across the first sector.
Oh, big crash in front of him. Look out. Car skidding, sliding all over, and Kumar just misses the crashed Ferrari.
And that was Zach Coonan there in the Ferrari. Not entirely sure what happened there to him. We'll have to see if we can pull up a replay, but I've got to suspect that there was just a little bit of contact with the outside wall potentially, or maybe the inside wall coming through the apex. We take a look here at the Ferrari, bringing it out nice and wide as he misses the wall there coming up through the corner. Now this is on the run going down through Solomon Park. Oh, the rear end just broke away on him. Too much speed through the corner.
Yeah, I wonder if he got some of the curbing there as well. I think that could have had a pretty significant impact on the how upset the car was at that particular moment. So as we jump back live, Staffen now into the chase, but Coonan drops to 4th and has some damage. This time it's to mostly the right side of the car. We'll see how much it affects him, but I think the curbing is what upset that car to kick that off.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. And the curbs here, you mentioned it, for the majority of this track, you really don't want to be touching them at all. They're pretty high curbs, and they can really, really upset the relatively stiff suspension that you need to run here at Bathurst. They're a great angle that you can see coming down through Murray's Corner, just how big that apex curbing is. If you get onto that, it'll certainly throw you off, and that's exactly what we saw happen.
And this is kind of a characteristic of Australian tracks in general. If you look kind of globally around at racetracks that were built recently, you get curbing that's kind of flat. It's got some ripples and rumbles to make it vibrate when you drive over it. It's generally considered part of the racing surface. A lot of older tracks and tracks in Australia specifically have really tall curbs that are designed as a barrier more than they are as part of the racetrack. You see here in Griffin's Bend how tall they are, even on exit here. Just big obstacles. And if you get over them straight, not a big deal. If you get the tires up on one side and kind of climb it in a corner, it can massively shift the balance of the car quickly. Even when it comes back down, it'll compress the suspension, and it'll be a bad day if you get yourself on one of those things.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, it's indicative of a lot of Australian circuits, and every circuit has their own sort of different way to handle curbing. And so, big wiggle there for Zach Coonan. That car not exactly looking stable. Now, that's roughly the same place that he had that mistake earlier on, and I think with the damage on the side of the car, he is just looking a little bit twitchy.
Let's jump back a little bit and have a look at the M-Class field. Vlad Dola, by the way, in the number 5. He's had a really nice, clean start to this event. Has kept all 4 tires on the road, and with that, he's got the AM class lead, about 4 seconds over Martin Lassen in the 111 behind him. BMW, Audi, BMW at the podium of the M category.
Well, we said that BMW may be a car to watch out for here today, and it certainly looks to be that way here, especially if you are Vlad Dola, as he now brings the car on to the Conrad straight. No real concerns at this point, and this is the point on the lap when you as a driver are able to relax for a minute. You can kind of take a breath, but I'll tell you who can't do that. That's Martin Lassen, who is now closing in behind the Bentley in front of him, and this looks like it could be a little bit of a battle.
I think actually this Bentley is Matt Gefeller, who's out or a couple laps down because of the damage on the opening lap. Lassen was actually involved in that incident, and you can see the damage on the nose of this Audi. It might be slowing him down on the straightaways a little bit, but this is not a lead lap battle. That's Gefeller in the 19 that he's about to drive by. So Lassen runs 7th overall, 2nd in the AM category, ahead of Bill Strobel, who is running pretty quickly, but same story here, some damage on the nose of this CrowdStrike sponsored BMW.
Yeah, and it'll be hard for him, I think, necessarily to really feel out what that damage is here at this point. We could be dealing with a little bit of situation that he's losing some straight line speed. The steering looks to be pretty solid. You can really tell if there's a particularly hard lick in these cars that you'll see the steering off kilter a little bit. It looks like it's not affecting him too much here at this point, so it may just be a little bit of cosmetic damage to that Triple Eight.
Yeah, and hoping that's cosmetic. Of course, you're only really going to sense damage like that in 2 places. At the end of the straightaway, like right here, he might be down a couple of miles an hour on pace, and then maybe in those high-speed corners. Thankfully, at Bathurst, there's not a ton of flat high-speed corners that you're relying completely on aerodynamic downforce. A lot of places here have tons of elevation change that press the car into the road and give you some mechanical grip. So I don't think the aero is going to be a massive deal for Bill here, but it's certainly something that could affect him.
And Zach Coonan has had another problem. He has binned it there coming up and over Skyline. I was watching this car as he went through, and it just looked like the car broke away on him. I think he maybe have come into the corner a little bit later and too heavy on the brakes, and it was just enough to snap the car right around.
Here's another look at it. Comes over Skyline, tires up on the curb, was following Bill Clark, and yep, just car gets a little bit light at the top of the hill, and that was a big impact there. That's going to certainly hurt the performance of that Ferrari into the tire wall on driver's right, but that's a real shame there, DJ. But again, over the crest of the hill, we talk about that dynamics of elevation. You're going to get pressed into the road when you're going from a downhill to an uphill, and you're going from an uphill to a downhill. You're going to take flight for just a moment, and that caught out Coonan there.
Yeah, and what happens when that exists in a car is... he's had another problem.
Yeah, this car is definitely broken. It's not handling very well, and he's having trouble just getting it back to pit lane.
Yeah, very, very difficult. You can see it's crabbing there a little bit. The suspension of that car, not great. And that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. When you can see the suspension is out of whack, he is almost at full 90 to try to keep that car pointed in the straight direction. He is going to have to come down into pit lane here, as that car does not want to turn left whatsoever. But as I was talking about, when you come over the crest of Skyline like that, Kyle, you talked about the car getting light. What that means is there's less pressure on the tires, and there's not as much of a surface area that they're making contact with the road. And so what you want to do is you do not want to be putting any steering input into the car at that point, because the minute that the gravity sort of pulls you back into the earth, the car's going to make contact and immediately spear off in that direction. And I think that's exactly what happened there to Coonan.
Yeah, and I think partially your setup plays into that as well. How loose is your car setup? How much does the rear want to move around? Spring rates, your aero settings, all of that factors in to how much you can get away with that, because as much as you'd like to be perfectly straight, the track curves away there, so you have to point the car before you get to the corner. And I think that's what you're getting at. It just is a big challenge, and why I personally have struggled to make laps around here in any sim ever. This is a difficult racetrack, and if our second place overall runner having multiple issues and crashes doesn't prove that, I don't know what will.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you who's not having any problems, though, is Josh Staffen up at the front of the field in this number 93. He has looked absolutely pixel perfect up to this point. We've already talked about just how inexperienced of a driver Josh Staffen is, and he is certainly showing it here today, though it does look like we've got a little bit of a battle right now between Kumar and Clark starting to shape itself out.
Ooh, going to throw Dola in the mix, but he just went off at Oh, no, he didn't. That was another BMW, so he's back a little ways. There was one of the other BMWs went off right behind this group, but Bill Clark trying to reel in Kumar, and last time by he was a couple seconds slower, but his best lap is only a few tenths off of Arup's. So, Arup must have had an issue. He ran a 2:09.2 last time by, which means that's partially why he got reeled in by the 24.
Yeah, and remember, there's a little bit of damage to the right-hand side of that Audi for Bill Clark and the number 24, so he's going to be having to deal with that. Ooh, you can see that BMW in the background having a terrible, terrible go of things. That's the number 500 of Landsatter. That looks like he is probably going to be done for the day, and indeed, he pops back into pit lane. Not surprised there. That is the second incident we've seen in just about as many corners from him.
Jumping back into second in AM class, we've seen Bill Strobel get by Martin Lassen, so the 888 BMW doesn't seem to be as affected by his damage as the 111 of Lassen. Koonin is in pit lane. Then how about this driver, the 44 of Mark Waugh? He is one of actually the leading Mercedes AMG. Now the Mercedes AMG, of course, is the car that's driven by the real-world CrowdStrike Racing by Riley Motorsports team in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Although both of the Mercedes in the field that are now nose to tail here are the first-generation Mercedes AMG, while there is an Evo kit that kind of reformats some of the electronics as well as the front fascia of this classic and multi-time champion and race-winning machine.
Yeah, for sure, and it is certainly a beautiful car to behold, and one of my favorite sounds in all of the paddock. You can hear that just sort of guttural scream from the Mercedes as it comes down on these long straightaways as we ride on board with Mark Waugh right here in that number 44. Just, getting things a little bit wrong down through the S's.
Yeah, just put it a little bit offline, and it will skid just 2 drivers right, and a few will sneak on by. I don't know if that was for position or not. There's a couple of cars that were damaged early that are back on track with some fresh bodywork and suspension components, and that will help them get on by without too many issues. The 88 of Turtan, we've talked about the Lexus, but just behind him positionally, that's Pratik Mishra in another BMW. We haven't talked a lot about Pratik, but ran with us last season in the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League, and is back this time. Hasn't been a stellar day, but certainly has not been a bad one. That car damaged early, but now back on the track and looking pretty clean.
Yeah, looking pretty clean here, and I think for a lot of these drivers on such a tricky circuit like Bathurst, if you're just able to put in a good, clean day, walk away, being able to hold your head high, that's going to be a good thing for you. That means that you are going to be able to feel good about yourself going forward in the rest of these races. We do head to Brands Hatch next, which has, unlike Bathurst, plenty of runoff, but an equally tricky track. For a lot of these guys, these first couple of rounds are really going to be the testing points for them.
Brands Hatch, yeah, it's got runoff in comparison to Bathurst. However, lots of the runoff is just grass, especially if it's rainy. That could be a challenge, and of course, being in the UK, the chance for it to be rainy is pretty high, so we'll see how that goes. But not a lot of paved runoff anywhere on the schedule until we get to Spa a little bit later in the season, and we all know Spa is not an easy track either. Very high speed. And has lots of high-speed corners to go with it. Up front, Staffen leads the way and has the best lap of the race. We call that the CrowdStrike fastest lap, DJ. He's got it right now at a 2:02.000.
Yeah, he is just absolutely flying up at the front of this field here at this point, bringing his way down through the cutting right now. It doesn't look like here at this point he's going to run into a whole lot of lap traffic in the final 24 minutes left to go in this race. I think this is going to be relatively a Sunday drive out here for Josh Staffen.
I'd say so, especially with Koonin having all that damage, and the 36 is still in pit lane. I don't think he's going to be able to get back out on the racetrack like the others that were involved in that early collision. How about John W. getting the Porsche back on the track, the 911 GT3R? Talked about the rear engine capabilities. Haven't talked a lot about John's night, but started with a crash on lap 1, but he's back on track now, 15th place.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of mentality you want to have in a series like this. If you do get involved in one of those incidents, get yourself back out on track, see what you are able to do with it, and push yourself forward as much as possible. And that's exactly what John has done here today. So massive, massive kudos to him. He's going to be getting a nice little draft here from that BMW up in front of him. See a little bit of weaving back and forth. If things get a little bit closer, that certainly could be something to come into play. Ooh, John, very good under the binders. That's an Audi out in front of him. I think that's Asso that we saw.
Yeah, that wasn't the 25. It must have been, was it Wagner? No. Which Audi was that?
It was Wagner.
Oh,
it was Wagner.
Okay. good to know, but car, a little bit of damage there. About 22 minutes to go. Had a thought and I lost it while all that was going on. We were watching that good fight for position. But Kumar runs second. Again, we haven't really touched on Kumar in a little bit. Last time by, run a 2:04.185, still about 8/10 clear of Bill Clark running third, Christopher Weil in fourth in the 41, and Vlad Dola leading in the AM class in fifth place overall. Really good race for Vlad despite the nose damage on that car. Is rebounding. A top 5 overall in round number 1 is going to be a great start for Vlad.
Yeah, I certainly think so. It's going to be something really to hang your hat on here if you are Vlad Dola. And, you know, he does have about 18 seconds to try to catch up to Weil up ahead of him. I don't think he's going to be able to do that, but he can always hope for a little bit. You never hope for the misfortune of others, but I think if he's going to gain a position here at this point, it's going to be by a mistake from somebody up in front of him. But it doesn't quite look like here at this point that he has got the outright speed to be able to close in, but he'll just be able to keep focusing around. And it's not like running hot laps here at Bathurst is anything but easy, so he still has his work cut out for him here in the final 21 minutes.
I remember what my thought was. It was that we were on board with John Williman down the back straightaway, Conrad Straight. 274 kph without doing the conversion, DJ. Tell me what that speed is. Don't cheat.
That's fast.
It's 170 miles an hour. That is absolutely cooking. And we'll ride on board again and watch that speed climb just over the top of that yellow gear that is number 5 right now. He's going to get up into 6th gear. He's going to be in the slipstream here. Can we get north of 170 miles an hour in the slipstream? I would say so. Lifts there, though, to stay behind the Ferrari for now. That's Tomlinson just ahead of him.
Yeah, and I think there he doesn't want to be too aggressive. Tomlinson, that is for position right there between the Ferrari and the Porsche, but I think he just didn't want to necessarily send it down into the corner. What you can do at this point in the race is study your opponent a little bit if you are behind. No, he's going to have a little bit of a look going down into Murray's right now. Going to back off of it. That's going to be a shallower line there, but he's still able to get the corner nice and easy. But as I was saying, what you can do if you are in this position that John is study Tomlinson. Figure out where he's strong, where he's weak, and then try to take advantage of that driver in any of those positions that you notice that he's not running the best that he could be.
Really like what John did down there towards Murray's corner. He's offset to the left. We thought he was going to go for a pass, and I think he was trying to make Ryan Tomlinson think he was going to. That's just faking out to the left, making the driver glance up in the mirror and go, where'd John go? And then that split second that you look up, you're distracted and can overshoot the corner. If the driver in front of you just drives off the track, it's a whole lot easier to make a pass, and that was an expert move there by John. Didn't fully come to fruition, but he might try it again.
Yeah, he might try it again. He's going to be stuck in line here, though, as they work their way up the hill. Not a real good chance to be able to try to work their way on by. By the way, that car up ahead of them is not for position. I'm not entirely sure who that is, but that is not a driver that is battling these two. This is the sole battle in between Tomlinson. Oh, Tomlinson makes a mistake, goes a little bit wide, and that's going to open up the door there for John Williman.
Makes it easy for John. He'll sweep on through. I think Tomlinson just missed the turn-in point just a little, kind of rim rides the outside lane and allows John to squeeze through into what will now be 13th place. So that battle has extinguished for now. Let's jump a little bit further up the road, back to 10th place. Here's Pratik Mishra in the number 7. And is that Chris Humphreys just behind him? No, Humphreys is in the Aston Martin. So Pratik still got a little bit of an advantage over his next competitor in the field. Humphreys not quite in the shot here. I think he's back a little ways. Here he is on the Conrad Straight, the Aston screaming down the backstretch. And he does have John Williman behind him, though. That is going to be about a lap between these two drivers.
Yeah, it certainly is. And that was the car that we saw up ahead. Williman, as we said, not in contention for this battle for 11, as he is now in 13th place here at this point. So this is going to be a little bit of a scrap just for bragging rights, I think, necessarily, as sometimes when you're a driver, you just see one of those cars in front of you and you want to have a little bit of fun as they go. Good line both for Humphreys and Williman, though. I think here that Porsche may just have the legs over the Aston Martin as they work their way through Hell Corner. Let's see if he's able to get a good draft here, maybe get the pass done into Griffin's Bend.
Humphreys accelerates away, trying to put some distance on this Porsche. Yes, they're laps apart, but I don't know how much that's going to matter. I think these two are just going to kind of relish the opportunity to race each other for at least a moment. Not for track position, but they are two cars on a racetrack, and it's hard to get that out of the driver's mind, DJ, that you just want to get by him.
Yeah, exactly. You see a driver in front of you, and the only thing you can think of if you're a racing driver is attack, attack, attack. But they've got to be careful. You could see it there. Great camera angle coming up through the cutting. That is what one of the things that we'll start to talk about here as this race continues to go along. The marbles that really start to build up offline on this circuit as they continue to drive around here. The tires discard just a little bit of rubber each time that they keep going around, and for every time they do that, they're just getting pushed out to the outside of the track. And when you try to drive over them, it's like you're driving on marbles. It's like you're driving on ice. There's absolutely no grip out there. So the longer this race goes, the harder it's going to be to make an overtake on some of the outside of these wider corners.
Humphreys had a big moment through Skyline, dropped some tires off, and got 4 tires in the dirt at the crest of the hill. It was a very scary moment, but he got it kind of wrangled back together, still with some pressure behind. And there was also the Lexus in behind as well. Now that is Turtan, who's 8th place, who's 2 laps ahead of Humphreys here, so that is also not for position. Slow car and squeezed through does Humphreys. That was crazy as he went off the track to avoid the slow Mercedes AMG and absolutely just blitzed by the car trackside there, DJ. Let's have another look at that.
Yeah, that was a very, very hairy moment. If you are Chris Humphreys, we take a look at this. That slow Mercedes AMG felt a little bit of the pressure there from behind from Willeman as they now work their way onto the Conrad Straight. You see here the decision-making that Humphreys had to go through in order to get this done. That Mercedes slow in the middle of the track. It looks like he was drifting over to driver's right to try to let everybody by, and Humphreys wanted to go right, had to take the car off into the grass. Great job to keep that Aston Martin underneath it.
That was absolutely wild. And you see, it didn't affect the Porsche trailing quite as much, but now Humphreys has his hands full with a Porsche and a Lexus in behind him there. Great thinking for Humphreys to just move to the right and drop the tires in the dirt and then not crash the car. So great heads-up driving there. And you might say, well, why did he have to take that drastic move? It's hard to see from the trackside cameras, but there's a ton of elevation on the Conrad Straight. Could come up over the crest and see a car moving at 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, and you don't have any time to react.
No, you really don't, and so that was good heads up there from Chris Humphreys to react to that, and that's that split-second decision-making that you have to do when you are traveling at these such high speeds as you are up and up the Conrad Straight. Take a look on board here with Chris Humphreys as he brings his way contact into the outside wall.
Oh, big hit on the right and then on the left. You see the damage on the car now, and for Humphreys off into the gravel trap, it has gone very bad very quickly for the number 65.
And that is a little bit of what I was talking about. You just have to be able to keep on it the entirety of this race. You cannot let your concentration slip a mere moment. I've talked to plenty of drivers who are what I would consider to be Bathurst experts. They have told me multiple times that when you're driving up and over the hill, you can't back off. You have to be full attack coming over this portion of the track, because otherwise you miss your braking zones, you miss what you need to do. And if you try to run at about 95% as opposed to 100, it can actually throw you off and lead to into mistakes like we just saw from Chris Humphreys.
Yeah, it's a rhythm thing, right? You get your rhythm, you get your muscle memory. Anytime you change that, even if you're going slower, you're right, it can really throw you off and make you make a mistake. So if there's no real good reason to back it down, you don't need to save fuel or anything of the sort, there's no need to change what you're doing unless you're hitting the fence and need to slow down for that reason. You're right, it can get you out of your groove, and that can be a bad thing when there's concrete to either side of your groove.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where other tracks around the world aren't nearly as punishing here as Bathurst, but that is certainly one of the characteristics of Bathurst. You cannot make any of those mistakes. As we focus back in on the leader of your race, Josh Staffen, who continues to hold on a mighty gap at the front of the field as he comes down now into Murray's Corner. He's going to cross over the start-finish line with under 13 and a half minutes left to go.
Well, as we're getting down towards the end of this race, another 13 minutes left, I'd like to tell everybody about the Race of Remembrance that's happening currently right now at Anglesey Circuit over in the UK. DJ, this is an annual race that is put on in remembrance of the sacrifices made by service personnel and their families. This endurance race features a hero's dinner, night racing, and a trackside service of remembrance. There are 2 cars from the SRO Motorsports America group over there right now with Operation Motorsports, and I'll have you talk about them here in just a moment, but there are 2 Honda Civic Type R TCs running right now, 15th and 16th after the first day of racing.
Yeah, and you mentioned there Operation Motorsports, one of the organizations that is most near and dear to my heart. What they do is basically when service members are returning back home stateside, they often find themselves in a little bit of a loss. They're so used to operating with a team, with a group of others to achieve a goal, and they find themselves lost when they transition back into civilian life. And so what Operation Motorsports plant does is that they place them in a motorsports team. They get them on the ground, working with their hands, working in everything from mechanic jobs to race control to anything like that, so that they can have that same sense of purpose and that same sense of family and team that they are used to in their military service. It helps the transition back from deployment into civilian life. It is a really and truly very special organization that has done so much good in Canada, the UK, and the US. And as I said, it is a organization that is very near and dear to my heart. So if you have any desire to check them out, please check out Operation Motorsports. There are a few groups that do as much good as they do.
Absolutely, and well said, DJ. In the Race of Remembrance, you can watch that live on the BRSCC YouTube channel, and they are streaming that event. And there is another part tomorrow, so you haven't missed out on the whole thing. Multi-class touring car race, and we've got 2 cars from Operation Motorsports over there competing, including driver Kevin Boehm, who is the 2022 TC class champion and the 2020 TCA class champion for, at the time, CrowdStrike Racing, and then now Skip Barber Racing School. So some really cool stuff going on. I think those 2 cars were actually donated for this event by the Skip Barber Racing School team. So really neat things. Got to talk to Diesel Lauder about that at Sebring a couple of months ago, and he was really excited about the opportunity to race over there again. And especially on a stage like that. Tomorrow they'll have their remembrance service before they go racing again on Sunday. So about 10 minutes left in this race. Josh Staffen leads the way. He's in some lap traffic now, navigating by, I think that's Martin Lassen, the 111. Yes, it is. He's the third place car rather in the AM category as we get down to the last 10 minutes of action.
Yeah, and this is one of the sketchy points if you are Josh Staffen. Remember, we talked about how you have to really attack at 10/10ths of the course of this entire run. Well, he now finds himself plugged up behind a slower lapped car that is going to be throwing off his rhythm and his pace. He doesn't necessarily want to try to make a move coming up and down the hill here, as you really can't go too wide through the majority of these corners, but he's got to be very careful to stay on his A game and not make a little bit of a mistake trying to get too eager as they go by. My guess here is he'll be able to move by the Audi coming down the Conrad Straight as they work their way now through Forest Elbow. Oh, a little bit of a contact there to the outside for that Audi, but I think he is going to be able to get that move done here going down Conrad.
Yeah, got a great exit out of Forest Elbow and gets by the number 111. They also had to pass Ryan Tomlinson just after the dipper down there, and Tomlinson pulled off the driver's right in the AF Corsa Ferrari, so moves him offline and moved Josh Staffen through to put those drivers a lap down. Still a long ways back to second place. Arut Kumar in the pro category. 4 of the top 5 overall are pro class cars. That's Vlad Dola leading in AM, and Bill Strobel, who we haven't checked in on a while, he's second, about 12 seconds back from the AM class leader.
Yeah, about 12 seconds back here at this point as Strobel tries to work his way up the hill right now. Looks like we've got a local yellow out on track for something. We'll let you know if we can find out what that is. But Strobel just doing a good job. In 6th place right now. Not looking like he's going to be able to close in on a top 5 here at this point, but certainly doing what he needs to do at this point and being able to walk away second in that AM category. Certainly a good feather in his cap for the day.
He's doing a great job right now in that BMW. Despite the early damage, he's kept his head in the game and continues to lap pretty consistently, and just has to hold off Martin Lassen, who's a little ways back, about a quarter to a third of a lap. So he should be all right, provided nothing major happens in the next 8 to 10 minutes. Alexandru Turtan, the number 88, is a little ways, about a lap behind Martin Lassen. This is 4th in AM class. He's the lone Lexus in the field, and Pratik Mishra is behind him in the overall running order, down in 9th place. He's on the front straight right now.
on the front straight right now as he's going to bring that car down into hell corner. You can see a little bit of damage there on the front of that BMW for Mitchell. Let's take a look at his steering. Again, it looks pretty straight there, so maybe just a little bit of cosmetic damage on the front of it. It may affect his straight line speed ever so slightly, but it doesn't look like he's going to be having too much of a problem here cornering and getting the car around, which is going to be crucial. I have driven this circuit with a little bit of damage on the front of the car, and I will tell you, it becomes exponentially more difficult when you're not entirely sure what that steering is going to do.
Yeah, you need predictable inputs for sure. Here's a look at Arut Kumar again, second overall. Wanted to go back on the onboard of this car in particular, this BMW M4. Now, BMW has had a big investment in sim racing because they see it the same way you and I see it, DJ. A great place for drivers to learn, to hone their skills, to get involved in motorsport. Take a look at that steering wheel. It's got a Fanatec logo on it. That's not by accident. Fanatec, again, partner with Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. That steering wheel that's on the car, you can use that in the simulator one-to-one. You can buy that steering wheel and use it on your home rig if you'd like, and then take it to your real BMW M4 GT3 as soon as you can get one. You can plop it on, it'll work just the same.
Yeah, and that is by far one of the coolest things that Fanatec has been able to do. I got to actually sit in the new GT4 that they are going to be rolling out, and was talking to one of the gentlemen about that wheel in particular, and talking about just how cool it is, and the ability to go from the track to the sim with the same wheel. It just builds a sense of familiarity. It builds a sense of comfort that you're able to have whether you're on the rig or in the car, and that kind of sense of normalcy, for lack of a better term, is really what you need as a racing driver. You want to have as many creature comforts as you can to make yourself feel as comfortable as possible behind the wheel of the car, because the more comfortable you are, the faster you're going to go.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to say about matching your inputs. Now, you might not necessarily be able to copy over the pedal box one-to-one, but the steering wheel is something that you can kind of match up, and we talk about muscle memory all the time. You might not have the same inputs, but you're going to learn how much throttle you can apply here, how much brake you can use there. And especially when it comes to making adjustments on the car, you can make all the same adjustments you can in the car in the real world here in Assetto Corsa Competizione. So if you want to change traction control, where your hand falls on that wheel, that's going to be one-to-one in the sim versus real life. And there's definitely some carryover in usefulness when you practice all off-season to get yourself prepped. You don't have to look down, you don't have to search for buttons on the wheel. You've trained that into your memory, and that is critical in high-intensity moments when you're scrambling to change settings.
Yeah, exactly. You want to just immediately know what the inputs are going to be. You want to have that muscle memory programmed in, and having the same wheel really does allow you to do that. Focus back in right now on a little bit of a battle starting to play itself out. Clark and Vile starting to get a little bit close. Christopher Vile may be thinking about a move down into Skyline.
Yeah, this is getting really tight now. Down the downhill here at Mount Panorama. Bill Clark has third. Vile wants by in the 41 in fourth. This is a battle for the overall podium. Here they go now, down towards the Dipper and down towards Forest Elbow.
And this is all going to depend on the run here from Vile. I think he was able to take a little bit of a later apex. That's going to allow him to carry a little bit more speed here down the Conrad straight. That BMW tends to be a little bit quicker in a straight line than the Audi, but the Audi doing a good job of being able to try to pull away here a little bit. Let's see if he's able to get it. He's going to be closing in as they work their way into the chase right now. Peak still on the outside of the first part. That'll be the inside of the
they
chase.
touch!
Self-contact!
They crash. Third and fourth place in the fence hard down towards the chase. And big-time damage, and Bale comes out the other side, but it looks like Bill Clark, that car is junk.
Oh, that car has got a one-way ticket to the scrap heap there. Very hefty damage on the front of the car. This, to me, Kyle, looked just like a little bit of miscommunication going down into the right-hander. As you can see there, Vile doing a good job getting as much slipstream as possible, comes out there, and I think there as they came in, just both of them fighting for the same piece of real estate, and that is one of the dangers about that very, very swift right-hander.
Yeah, what I saw is as the 41 came around the outside of Bill Clark, the car actually got sideways. It got loose. I'm not sure if he grabbed some grass on the left or what, but the car spun, and it was kind of half spun across the road, and that's what led to the contact. I don't think he just turned directly into the 24. I think the car was already out of control, but for Bill Clark, that is going to end a podium run in disaster with under 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, and that's a real heartbreak for Clark in that number 24 Audi. You'll see him coming down into pit lane here right now. He's probably going to be parking that car, would be my guess, or maybe trying to get some quick repairs done on it as much as possible. But we focus up a little bit farther in the field. Josh Staffen continuing to run around here. This should be, by my calculations, about 2 laps to go here for the number 93.
Sounds about right. 3 minutes to go. These laps take about 2 and change, so that means that we're going to get the white flag next time by. Staffen leads. Arup Kumar runs second. Now Christopher Vile, with a little bit of nose damage, runs third. Bill Clark, who was fourth, drops down to pit lane. Now for Vlad Dola, that means that he's going to be running fourth overall now, an even better spot for our top AM runner right now in the number 5 BMW.
Yeah, he'll be very, very happy with that. The AM leader continuing to pilot his way around. Bill Strobel about 13 seconds behind him, so he doesn't really have to worry too much about an attack from behind, especially considering Strobel's got a lapped car directly in front of him here, and it looks like Strobel is playing this pretty cautiously. He doesn't want to be all over the rear end of that car because he doesn't want to get himself into a position like we saw in the first lap of this race. If there is an incident or an accident coming up through the mountain section of Bathurst, it can throw you off, and it can have a driver laying prone directly in your path with absolutely no runoff and nowhere to go.
I like that you said if there's an accident in that portion of it. It's usually a when we're talking about Mount Panorama. There's almost always an accident there. That's just how it tends to be. Speaking of podium for our AM category, Martin Lassen continues to run in third in that 111. Here he comes now to the inside of the 500 of Dante Lansnaster, who's down in 16th overall. Will make that pretty easy work for Lassen as he squeezes on through on the uphill here. But 1 minute and 30 seconds to go. Everybody is running out of opportunities to make their final passes, as Staffen should be coming around to the white flag this time.
Yes, he should, and I'm a little bit surprised there that we saw that move from Lassen. That was pretty aggressive, but good respect there between himself and Lansnaster.
Sorry, drive-through for Bill Clark. I wonder if that came from pit lane, because I would have thought if there was going to be incident responsibility, it would be to the 41, but this must be a pit lane violation, DJ. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything directly handed out by race control, so I think that must have been a speeding in pit lane or an unsafe pit entry potentially for Clark. That is automatically administered by Assetto Corsa Competizione rather than race control.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We'll go from bad to worse for him. For Josh Staffen, he enters turn number 1 for what should be the final time, throws up some sparks and some dirt, as it looks like. John Willeman off track there just a little bit. Made a mistake in turn 1, and Willeman running 10th now overall. This has been a pretty good recovery. Was one of our pro class runners, and while he is going to finish well down the order, at least he's going to finish this one out, albeit a couple laps down.
Yeah, and as we said, just being able to finish here at Bathurst is certainly a feat in and of itself, and I think this is going to be a little bit of a confidence builder here. Now that he's been able to get himself back around, he's going to want to put himself in position for Brands Hatch to try to build on some good consistency after that early incident.
So 19 laps is what leader Josh Staffen has completed. Only 2 drivers remain on lap number 19. That's Staffen and Arup Kumar, but it is now officially the white flag lap, so half a lap remains, and Josh Staffen's got some traffic to navigate here on this final run down the mountain.
Yes, he does. That's going to be one of the BMWs there directly in front of him. I would imagine here that Staffen is just going to hold up. No, he's not. He is going to breeze on by. I believe that was Bill Strobel in the 888 that he went on by. Strobel left the door open, and Staffen didn't need a second answer, as that is going to be P5, a lap down.
Yeah, that was a good call there by Strobel. He knows that if he finishes in behind this 93, the race will be over the next time he gets by the stripe. Just got on the brakes and let Staffen squeeze on through. And DJ Josh Staffen's done a great job today. Led from pole and drove away. It helped that Zach Coonan had some problems, but he has executed absolutely perfectly.
He has done everything he needed to do here today, and as you said, having a few offs here and there, but Josh Staffen doing what Josh Staffen does best, and that is bringing the car across the stripe.
Josh Staffen in the number 93 in the pro category is going to win the first round of the season in the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League in the Acura NSX GT3 Evo. He comes across the line and gets it done here in Mount Panorama. Arup Kumar a little ways back in the number 8, but the final run down the Conrad Straight for this BMW number 8, he has done a great job as well. Needed a little bit more pace, but he had had the hopes and dreams and just needs a little bit of a better shot next time to get at Staffen.
Yeah, exactly. And he'll be able to spray the champagne here, and that'll be some good solace. He's coming up behind the number 25 right now. And that Audi up in front of him, excuse me, I think that's number 24, actually, of Bill Clark, that he is able to get around here at this point. But Kumar going to be coming across the line here in just a little bit of time. A good run there for him. He will be pleased to be able to take a P2.
Checkered flag for Farouk Kumar, second place. And on the podium as we jump back to the 41, Christopher Weil, who had some problems a couple of laps ago battling for third, but was able to get the car turned back around in the right direction as he whirls his way through the chase. Our second place finisher in the M category has already come on through. That's Martin Lassen, as Bill Strobel had some issues on the final lap and didn't make it back to the checkered.
Very strange there for Strobel. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he'll be categorized as in pit lane. Here is your AM leader, however. Vlad Dola doing a great job of positioning that car where he needed to be, and he will be very, very pleased, I have to think, with a P1 in that AM class. You can see just a little bit of damage on that car, but he was able to fight through it and get himself into a position to take victory.
He's done an excellent job and just missed out on an overall podium. You see the celebratory smoke over there in Murray Corner, but Vlad Dola is going to win the first round of the season in the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League in the AM category, beating out Martin Lassen and Bill Strobel. Although with Strobel off track and Turtan still on, Turtan should actually be able to finish on the podium as he's got, looks like Bill Clark to his inside. That is not a... No, that is a battle for position as they're going to bang doors coming back to the stripe, and Turtan in the double eight. I think he feels responsibility there and is going to let Bill Clark go back by. And the battle for the podium, actually, Clark is an out-of-class car, so it didn't really end up mattering. Turtan will grab a podium in AM. Bill Clark comes home 6th overall and 4th in the pro class.
Yeah, good sportsmanship there out of Turtan. That's the kind of stuff you love to see here if you are a racing fan. Here is Mark Waugh, one of the few drivers that we are still waiting to cross over the line here in that Mercedes-AMG GT3 as he will bring the car down into the chase right now, the number 44. Not a whole lot of time here for him to go, only a couple of corners. Good line through there, Kyle. Dare I say, for the 044, he can bring it across the line as the flares start to envelop the track here at the end of the running. Waugh going to bring the car down through Murray's Corner right now, and he will take the checkered flag for 12th overall.
One of the last runners on the racetrack gets it done and will celebrate a top 15 result overall. We're going to take one moment. We'll get a quick look at the race results here. But that was a fun one, DJ. Always love racing here at Mount Panorama Circuit, and it just it never disappoints. Anytime you come to an international road racing facility like this, it is always fun to watch.
Yeah, it certainly is, and there's always something to be able to keep you on your game around here. Always a little bit of a argy-bargy, as our friend Calvin Fish would like to say. Always a little bit of coming together here, unfortunately, but glad to see so many drivers able to finish today's events.
Here's a look at your race results. Josh Staffen gets it done in the Acura NSX GT3 Evo in the number 93. Kumar runs second, then Vale in third. Then Dola, Lassen, and Turtan will finish out your AM category on the podium. A look down the rest of the order there, DJ. The only real surprise for me was Kunin having so many issues. We've seen him be so fast here, so consistent, but troubles here early takes out the car at the bottom of the order there. That is Kunin, the number 36.
Yeah, there you see him farther down the order there. Quite a few drivers. I really want to commend Josh Staffen. I mean, look at that. He was able to lap everyone all the way up into P4. Vlad Dola, a very, very impressive run for Staffen to see that play itself out.
Fantastic driving by Staffen, Kumar, and Vale, of course, having that issue towards the end, but grabs a podium there in the pro class. Before we sign off, let's talk about what's coming up on the calendar. Just under a month from now, about 3 weeks from now, we go racing at Brands Hatch Circuit in the UK, one of my favorite racetracks internationally as well. We talked about Bathurst being, one of the biggest, one of the most spectacular, but Brands Hatch is massively underrated, I think, on the global scale, DJ. Such a fun racetrack. You get to just send these GT3 cars all over curbs, all over the runoff. It's a blast.
Yeah, and very much the definition of old school in the way that it runs. Not a lot of long straightaways. It's a track where you're constantly turning and moving the car around. And then after that, we have the Suzuka. Always a great track to watch GT3 action on when there are multiple areas to be able to get an overtake done. Monza, well, that needs no introduction, nor does Spa. And then we end the season out at Laguna Seca.
Well, that's going to do it for us for the first round of the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League. DJ had a blast with you today. Looking forward to the next one. Final thoughts here on Bathurst before we head off to December 3rd in our battle at Brands Hatch Circuit.
Well, I think Josh Staffen has secured his place up at the front of the field, and he has put down the mark to beat here. I think everybody else is going to be trying to close in on that Honda NSX for the rest of the season.
He's going to be tough to beat. We'll see ya in just under a month at Brands Hatch Circuit. Make sure to subscribe to the CrowdStrike Racing YouTube channel if you have not. I'm Kyle Heyer with DJ Clark. We'll see you next time for round 2 of the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League. We'll see ya in the UK.